Hey, everybody, welcome to today's Daily Distinction. I'm glad you are here. I forgot to turn on the Instagram, so I'm going to make sure that I do that so that the folks who want to see this on Instagram Live can do so. We are here every day at this time. Hi to everybody on Instagram. Hello to everybody watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Where else are we live? For some reason, can't get approved to get live on LinkedIn yet. So want to be able to do that. Also, here's something I've been meaning to say for so many days, and I continually forget this, and that is most of the people that watch this are watching on replay. So for those of you that are watching on replay, I want to say thank you for that, and thank you for sharing. And a lot of the reason that folks watch on replay is simply because those of you that are watching live are enough to share. And so I really, truly appreciate that. So if you would take just a moment and share this, that would be greatly appreciated. It gets us more viewers and more folks on the replay as well. So please take a moment and share. That really helps us grow the audience. And that's what it's all about. We want to continue to share some daily distinction with more folks. So thanks for watching. Hey, Charles, first day, always great to see you, my friend. Thank you for being here as always. I love, for lack of a better term, love our regulars, because you are here all the time, and that is certainly appreciated. Man, what great guests we've had this week too. Laura Gassner-Otting on Tuesday and Brian Fanzo yesterday, and man, that's just been fantastic. So Brian, wasn't that fascinating? If you missed it, I really do hope that you go back and watch yesterday's Daily Distinction, because the guest yesterday was Brian Fanzo, and Brian had been in security, cybersecurity, prior to doing what he's doing now, and he talked about the digital future and all that. Was absolutely fascinating. But when he was talking about that the greatest threat to our security is just the mistakes that we make, not the Chinese or the Russians or anything like that, but the greatest threat to our online security is the screw ups that we have in terms of what we're doing. So it was, if you haven't watched that, I think you'll be absolutely fascinated by it. He said that the Pentagon is more threatened by an employee who leaves their laptop open with their password seen at Starbucks than it has been from Russian or Chinese hackers. I found that absolutely fascinating. So he talked about that yesterday, what our digital future is, and it was really, really cool. And Ted, thanks. Oh, great. Glad to hear that, Ted, that you sometimes do the replay at night. That's really terrific. And Bruce, yes, please share and please turn notifications on. I forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me of that, Bruce. You're the best. I appreciate that. We ought to make certain that we do that, turn notifications on. Matter of fact, Brian was telling me he has a notification set for this, so I don't know if he's watching now or not, but he was just a fabulous guest yesterday. Hello, Sarah Thomas, my favorite in Indianapolis, and by the way, Tammy is thrilled that you are here too. So Sarah, gosh, I know I think I miss Sullivan's, my favorite place in Indianapolis, because we're in Vegas now, but I know that you've got a lot of folks who live there right now who are missing you. And Gary stopping by. Hey, thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. And Gary, yes, never, ever use free Wi-Fi. If you're not paying for it, then you're the product, right? And that's part of what's happening there. So yeah, Charles, it was absolutely fascinating yesterday. Listen to him talk about that. And yes, Phil, great to see you, having fun. And Sarah, we miss you too. Thank you for being here. Okay, so a couple big things to talk about today. No guests today, just us today. So thank you for chiming in. And if you have any questions, or if there's anything you'd like for me to talk about, please make certain that you send those in a comment. I'll post them up here and we'll chat about it. So thank you for being here, and thanks for everybody that's watching. Got a bunch of folks on right now on all the different platforms. I was thinking about how I grew up, And that one of the things that was really, really important to my parents as they were raising my sister Shelly and me in Crothersville, Indiana, was a respect for authorities. You were supposed to respect the police. Even if you disagreed with what the police were saying, you respected them, you followed their order, and then we'd sort it out later on, right? Matter of fact, when I was in high school, I worked at the local radio station down in Scottsburg, Indiana, WMPI, literally Wimpy Radio. So, and on the weekends, high school basketball in Indiana is just king, and especially there was such a big thing. Well, the radio station was based in Scottsburg, so they would air the Scottsburg games live. I would do play-by-play for the Crothersville basketball games, but it wasn't live. So in the early days, when they were trying to decide if it was going to be successful, what that meant was we would do it on reel-to-reel tape. We would record it. And because it was on a reel-to-reel tape, God, I sound like my dad walking to school. Man, I sound so old. Okay, but because it was on a reel-to-reel tape, I had a guy that was my color commentator. I did play-by-play. He was my color commentator. So he would chip in and we would talk. But at halftime, he would take that first reel and drive it to the radio station. So the Scottsburg game would be over. They'd put the reel of tape on and they'd start broadcasting our broadcast of the first half. What that meant is now when the second half is over and the game is done, I've got to take that second reel, jump in my car, and drive it as quickly as I can get there to Scottsburg so that by the end of the first half, now it's time for the second half, and then the second half of the ball game would be on, right? So the listener would think it was streamless. Okay, guess what happens this one night? Overtime. It was like 3 overtimes. So now it's almost like there's been an additional half added on to that. So I know they're playing music and they're waiting to see what happened. And the person who was on the air was doing a really great job. Oh, this must be an exciting game because we're waiting and people are waiting. And I rush in and I give them the tape and the ball game goes on. Now I'm driving back to my home in Crothersville. So it's like 12 miles from the radio station, probably 10, 12 miles, right? But it's after curfew. We had a curfew back then, and it was 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock on the weekends, but it's like 12:30, 12:45 by the time I'm driving back because the game's gone long. I've had to drive the tape down, get it on the air, all that. Now I'm driving back. It's 12:30, 12:45, and I'm breaking a law. I'm violating curfew. I had an old Ford Fairlane, so old it was 3 on the column. If some folks won't even know what that means, 3 on the column. It was it had a clutch, right? And it was 3-speed clutch. It was a manual transmission, but it wasn't a 4 on the floor. It was a 3 on the column, right? So I'm going along, and I'm just scared to death because if I get stopped, I've broken the law. Are they going to take me to jail? What are they going to do to me? And so I get through town, and just as I pass the city limits, the lights come on, and a cop is behind me. And I'm 16. I mean, I've only had my driver's license like 90 days, at this point. And the lights go on behind me. And I was so scared. I slowed down, pulled off the road, and I was in 3rd gear, right? I was on 2nd gear. I just hit 3rd gear because they hit the city limits. And the lights come on, and I'm so scared. I pulled over. I didn't even hit the brakes. I didn't even push the clutch in. When I let off the gas, the car lurched and died, right? So the car just dies. So I don't know if it's a county policeman or a state policeman or a local Crothersville policeman, and the door opens and I see a guy named Mike, who was a patrol officer in our hometown and was a friend of my dad's, the whole bit. And he very slowly walks up and he's looking like this. And I roll the window down and I said, "Hi, Mike." He said, "Scott, I thought that was your car." He said, "I couldn't find out if we won the game tonight or not. What was the score?" He wanted to know who won the ball game. That was it. He wanted to know who won the ball game. And I'm like, "Oh, we won. We won in overtime." He's like, "Oh, that's so great. That's so great." And then he said, "By the way, it's a good thing I stopped you because your brake lights aren't working." Well, I didn't have the guts to tell him. I was so scared I didn't even hit the brakes. I was so scared I never even touched the brakes. My car just died, right? And so then I start up and I touch the brakes and he hollers back and said, "Oh, I don't know. You must have a short in them because they're working now." Gosh, Mike, thanks. And I drive ahead. I was so terrified because it was so ingrained in us to follow the rules and follow the law and all that. Now, don't get me wrong. I think sometimes that can be very, very stifling. However, I also think to have a productive society, we've got to have rules and regulations that we follow. Everybody talks about their rights, but few people talk about their responsibilities. We have to have certain rules and standards that we all live by, right? I mean, that's how you have a civilized society. Fast forward to yesterday. So we're out of several things in the house, and Tammy and I have tried to be so cautious and so careful about everything about this. I have a friend, Cash, which is the perfect name for a financial advisor, isn't it? K-A-S-H, Cash. And Cash has been dealing with COVID-19. And I saw a message from him yesterday that 2 days ago, they thought he had either had a heart attack or a stroke. They weren't certain which. That's how severe this was. He's posted pictures. It's just, and I've got another friend, Mark Schaefer, that's been dealing with it, and he thought he was fine, and he got retested, and he's still showing positive, which means he no longer. He said it just felt like glass was all through his chest, and an elephant was sitting on it. It was just, I mean, just been horrific, and he's concerned, as he rightfully, right? We all are, for Mark, that. They continue to show positive for the virus. So there's so many things, and we're doing everything we can so that we don't get it. And I know that many of you are as well, right? So we put on our masks. Tammy's Aunt Linda made us some masks. I have a John Deere mask on. But my mask, I should have brought it. My mask is the John Deere logo. I posted a picture of it online. Tammy's got her cute little mask on. Anyway, so we go to the store, and the first place we go is Costco. And we loaded up. Man, I've got enough Cheerios for the apocalypse now. I am set. We have enough Tide that if the Chinese army needs their laundry done, I think we have enough Tide that we could wash the entire uniform collection of the Chinese infantry. Anyway, so we get the big stuff at Costco, but there are certain things we also need. So there's a store that's on the way home, and it's Smart and Final. So we stop at Smart and Final. Big sign in front of Smart and Final. No one admitted without facial covering. Not a problem. I got my John Deere mask on. Tammy's got her cute little mask on. We enter the store. We get what we need. We're trying to be, we wipe the cart down. We're trying to do, and now we get up to check out. And as we're shopping, they even are stopping people at the door. No, you have to have facial covering to enter the store. Okay, so we go through, we get everything. Now we get in line to check out. And the one person in the store who isn't wearing a facial covering is the cashier, the employee. So in other words, they have been telling everybody to make certain that you have on a facial covering, but yet somewhere in the store, the manager didn't ensure and the employee didn't follow the rule to put on his own facial covering. And I'm certain that the cashier in that store was encountering a heck of a lot more people than Tammy and I, who have been locked down here at home for, it feels like, the last 8 years, right? So it really, really struck me, the whole thing about do as I say, not as I do. We'll require you to do it, but oh, come on, we don't have to do it. Jeff, yes, it was unbelievable. It was crazy to think that, that the person who's seeing the most people, I think the person running the cash register is the person seeing the most people. And that was the person that didn't have a mask on, but they were yelling at people who wouldn't wear a mask on to come in the store. It's the whole do as I say, but not as I do mentality. I will be critical of Mike Pence for this as well. I'm not getting into a political thing here, right? I'm not saying red or blue, D or R, conservative, liberal, anything like that. But I think it's the important for a leader to set a good example. By the way, I'm from Indiana. Mike was our governor. One of my best friends, Dan LeClaire. Dan was my best pal in college. Dan went to work for me, and his roommate at a house that he was sitting in Indianapolis was Mike Pence, and Dan and Mike and David, another guy that lived in the house, used to come over for dinner like once a month at our house. So Mike Pence been I was on a flight and Mike was on the flight, and we moved seats around so we could sit together. I'm not his great friend. I don't mean that, but he's someone I'm acquainted with who, if he saw me, would call me by name. So I'm being critical of the action, not the individual. Okay. He should have had a mask on at the Mayo Clinic. It is not right for a leader not to model the behavior that they want everyone else to see. So I wonder sometimes about the people who are out there saying, the government can't tell me what to do. I'm going to go out and do this. I wonder what kind of example they're setting for their kids. Now, the example might be that you have to follow your heart or whatever. I get that, but I hope that they are using it as a teaching opportunity. If the mask covers your eyes, you're doing it wrong. Well, there are some people, Catherine, I would nominate for that way of wearing the apparel, but certainly not you. That's for sure. But yeah, that's so true, Catherine. So, I mean, I want us to think about, as we are going through this crisis, whether you are a leader in business, or I think we're all leaders in one way or another, whether it's that we're leading, our families, our kids, our people that we're in touch with, whether we're a leader in a church or mosque or synagogue, or whether we're a leader in terms of being a manager, whatever it might be. I think one of the most important things that we can display is congruency. Congruency simply means that I will set the behavior, I will set the model for the way that I hope people follow. I talk about distinction because I studied it for so long, and I put it into place in my own business, and I feel like I'm qualified. You'll never hear me on here teaching financial management seminars, because that has not been my strong point, right? I think if I'm going to ask you to follow my advice, I have to model that behavior. And in one area, I have not modeled the behavior that I hope that you would follow. In another area, I've studied it and worked on it, and it's something I feel comfortable teaching. And I think we have to be very careful about the signals, particularly during this time when so many folks are at home and so many folks have a different lifestyle. The behavior that we exhibit is going to come back to roost on us in many, many, many ways. Man, I think there's so many opportunities. This is such a difficult time, and don't get me wrong. I mean, man, it's crazy because I was talking about my friend Sarah that just said hello. As a server, the restaurant's closed, right? The bar is closed, folks. I mean, it's gone. As a professional speaker, there are no meetings. It's gone. Income is zero. It's tough. Yet I also think that it's also an incredible opportunity to pivot, is a word I've heard a lot of folks use. And I don't know that I like that necessarily, because when you pivot, it also means that you're turning away. I prefer a term like embrace. It doesn't mean we have to let go over here, but there's something else that we can embrace as well. What we have to do is to think about what can we encourage during this time. I've said a lot that I think 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, I think it's going to be amazing how many young people say to their parents that this was one of the best times they ever had, because the family was together and they put puzzles together, or they played games together, or whatever. And I think we have an incredible opportunity here. But I also think we have to be very cognizant of, what are we modeling? Are we being congruent with what we say and what we do? When I did the research for the book Iconic, one of the things I found was pretty surprising. And that was this whole thing about under promise, over deliver is wrong. Studies, there's more than one study, but the main one that I learned was from the University of San Diego. And what they found is that when you under promise and over deliver, sooner or later, the person you're under promising and over delivering to thinks you're trying to manipulate him. They don't appreciate the over delivery. They resent the manipulation. Now, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean that you don't do something special, right? I mean, if you do something that's not a part of the promise, then that's very cool and people appreciate that. But if you say, hey, I'm going to get this done, and then you get more done than what you promised, but you do that consistently, sooner or later people go, why didn't you just tell me what you're going to do? Right? Why didn't you just tell me what the deal was? And if we don't do that, we lose congruency. What we found was, and it's kind of a Larry Winget quote, the altered to this situation, that do what you say you will do when you said you would do it. Do what you said you'd do when you said you would do it. What a concept, right? Walk your talk. But yet I see so many that don't do that, whether it's a store saying everybody must go wear a mask, oh, except our cashier over here, or make sure, kids, you follow the rules, but I'm going to go out because government can't tell me I have to stay inside, or whatever it might be. We have to be congruent. That's an important part of what we do. So I'm going to go try to be a little bit more congruent because let me tell you, I'm behind on some calls and I'm behind on some things. Let me tell you why. I have a new book that's coming out this fall. And if you don't talk about the pandemic in the book, it's dated from the time it comes out. So I've got to go back and redo the book. And my deadline is tomorrow afternoon. So I've got a lot of work that I'm doing. So I've been buried in that, but it's going very well. And I'll tell you more about the book at a future time, but I'm really, really excited about it. Hey, Charles, yes, change always comes bearing gifts. Bryce Pritchard has so many great quotes, and that is one of the best. I love that. Change always comes bearing gifts. It's just that sometimes, we have our arms folded instead of open, and we don't accept the gift that change brings. And hey, better late than never. I'm glad you're here. Thanks, Ronaldo. I appreciate that greatly. So everybody, thank you so much for taking time to watch today. It's really terrific. And yes, you are on my list of to-do items. Dwayne, I got to get through this book, man. I've got to, if I don't, my publisher, Jonathan's going to, and there wouldn't be Daily Distinction next week. So I appreciate your patience. We got stuff to talk about. So it's all good, everybody. Oh, Phil, I'm ideas are, right now I'm in the process of getting it done. I don't need any additional ideas, but please feel free to share them for the next book. It is that's the problem with this, is that the book was done, the manuscript submitted, everything ribbon around the package, ready to go. And then this happens. And so now what we got to do is to go back and alter it. But one of the good things is this. When you're talking about important principles, they don't change, right? I mean, they don't change. Our values should stay the same and our principles should stay congruent, back to that word again, congruent and consistent regardless of what the crisis or the moment or the situation might be. So what we need to do is to reemphasize the basics and the things that really matter. So I'm altering some of the stories, it's minor things like talking about meetings, and you just got to change a little bit to back before the pandemic, and meetings were huge, and it's correcting text like that. So getting things done with that. Charles, thank you so much for being here today. Thanks to everybody. I'll be back tomorrow at the same time, as you might imagine. By the way, if you got any questions or anything you'd like for me to talk about, why I would absolutely love to do that. All you need to do is just let me know what that is here on social media. That would work out absolutely great. So I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow, as we do every day right here on Daily Distinction. Thanks for sharing this as well. I really appreciate it. See you tomorrow.